And welcome back to Restless. My name is Father Joseph Gill, priest of the Diocese of Bridgeport, Connecticut, and you have joined us on Yankees baseball. Sorry, too soon? Did they just lose the playoffs?
They did.
They did.
Yes, they did.
To the Red Sox.
To the Red Sox.
And I'm wearing a Red Sox hat, but I am not a Red Sox fan.
Why do you have that hat?
I was given it as a gift. By people who think that, no, like straight up, they think I'm like this die-hard Red Sox fan.
What?
They gave me, I'm
What
going to
do
pull
you
out a
mean?
keychain. Because I went to a Red Sox game.
One time?
Yeah, well, and I bought this hat.
This
and
hat?
Yeah, this hat.
Hey, can we talk about Jesus?
I love that you haven't introduced us. And
Oh, yeah. But,
who are these people?
we know now.
I'm the producer. I'm keeping this.
That's right. So we all do have different. We had a lot of special guests today. We've got Matt Frad.
Good day, good day.
We've got Father Mike Schmitz.
That's what it makes me.
We got somebody named Katie. I don't even know who this
Katie
person.
McGrady.
I have no idea. Katie. I like the name though. Katie McGrady kind of rhymes.
We are not doing this well.
She always says hello, hello, hello.
Actually, it is Paul, Matt, and Liv Harrison. Thank you, Liv, for joining us.
What's up?
She joined us from her show, which is It's Not That Late with Liz at Thursdays. Liv.
Everyone calls me Liz. I'm going to have t-shirts that say, don't call me Liz. That's going to be my merch.
I would buy that because I don't want to be called
People
Liz
be like,
either.
Don't call
Okay.
me Liz. Yeah.
I
Here's
was
a
like-
mug with the Red Sox on it.
I'll give it to my sister who actually is
On
Liz.
brand.
Oh, she can have it.
She can have, don't call me Liz. Paul's not bemused.
Paul did not think, he does not
What?
want that shirt.
No, I'm just
He's thinking about the
pondering
questions.
the episode.
which,
yeah.
which we were talking
Paul's just doing a good job.
Paul's like, if
Well,
we could
I
do
re-
the show, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned before the show that I'm very much an introvert, so I'm deciding what I'm going to say for these questions while you extroverts.
It's a lot of energy.
we just extrovert.
I'm an
We're just
extroverted extrovert.
extroverting.
Yeah, I make extroverts tired. So I'm sorry, Paul.
So we were talking.
That's what your t-shirt should be. Sorry. Okay.
We were talking in our last episode. In our last episode, we were kind of recounting the very sad story of Father Audrey Assad. No, of the Catholic, the Catholic, and Father Richard Rohr, and the Catholic world was kind of shaken by the leaving of some high profile, high name Catholics who left very publicly that they were no longer Catholics. And we were kind of talking about just the struggles that high profile Catholics have with spiritual warfare and being put on a pedestal, and definitely in how do we accompany these people, and when do we kind of insist on the purity of doctrine that we need to have as Catholics. And so we just want to continue that conversation, and with this really important question, because the reason why I found this article is because I follow Sherry Waddell. I'm a big fan of Sherry Waddell on the Forming Intentional Disciples Facebook page. And she had posted a great article about it, but all the comments were, oh, the church needs to do this, the church needs to do that, the church needs to do this to save these people and to not let these people go, and the church has to change this and that. And that's really what kind of made me more disheartened, in that, because all the Catholics that I know that are serious about, evangelizing are doing their best. We're trying to evangelize and accompany and reach out. And when I see things like this and it's like, well, the church needs to do better, I'm kind of like, oh man, like what does that mean? Are we failing at our job? Like, what do you think? I mean, do you think that people leave the church because the church is not doing a good job? Do you think people leave the church because of other reasons? Like,
When it's do better, do you think it's a twist of words on the church needs to update itself type of deal?
no, not necessarily.
Okay.
Well, because then you have the other side where it's like, well, if they just brought back communion reels in every church, the churches would be packed every Sunday.
Right.
And it's like, well,
see both those.
Probably it's not a bad thing, but it's probably not going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to look at it generally. I mean, I think it's the churches. I do agree that there's a lot of people in the church that are doing the best that they can, and you can go through all the different history. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that it's not just the Catholic Church that's losing people. It's for us as practicing Catholic, it's certainly the saddest. We don't like to see it, but it's systemic around organized religion generally. And you would say, okay, well, that's great for the other religions as long as they're becoming Catholic, but it's really sad when you see people walking away from the truth, because we know it's what people need. So that's really sad.
I just remember a funny story from Patrick Donovan, who is a member of our diocesan leadership team. He had this great story. He's got 4 kids, and he was taking his kids to Mass one time when his kids were really young. And the daughter was just acting up. She's maybe 3 or 4 or whatever. And finally, they all sat down after the prayers of the faithful. And the daughter kind of loud whispers to the dad, like, "Is church over yet?" And Patrick said, "No, we're only halfway through the mass." And she just threw up her arms and screamed at the top of her lungs, "Church is hard."
She's not wrong.
She's right.
And
she's not
I've never
wrong.
forgotten that, because I thought that was a great story. A great story. Like, you hear Jesus really only gave us 3 things to do. Go make disciples, teach all nations, baptize them. He left it pretty open-ended after that. And that's why church is hard, I think, because we were not given an instruction manual. It's not do X, Y, and Z and people will come to Christ.
Right.
It's an art, not a science.
Oh,
think
I thought,
church-
but there's 2 different. There's discipleship, but there's also living your faith can be hard.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
It's hard, and I think it requires. And the funny thing about, I would say, especially Catholicism, is the more you learn, it's almost like the more you talk about it, especially for us, we're on the radio, and it's like the more responsibility you start to take on. Mm-hmm. And the more and more responsibility, and obviously this as a priest, you have a very high responsibility. And so we live that, but I hope that, we can bear that burden. Not everyone can. And so it's always something to remember, that it's okay, well, if you're going to be a disciple and you're going to go out into the world, you now have a higher level of responsibility to yourself and to your church than you did before, to some extent.
Yeah.
That last episode, I had made the comment that you increase your faith and the target on your back grows.
Yeah,
and it's that same idea. Now all of a sudden people are looking at you. Obviously, the devil's going to want to take you out.
Yeah, absolutely. And more opportunities come for that. If you're just living in your house, in Idaho on 200 acres of land, and you only come out twice a year to be able to, hey, I don't know what people in Idaho do. So to our one listener in Idaho,
that's pretty obvious.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mormon.
I'm not sure. But yeah, that's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to not do something, to actually challenge yourself in the way of discipleship and actually go out there. And I get pushed back all the time because I'm a woman married with kids, and it's like, what are you doing out of the moms group? What are you doing? Whatever. And I talk about this a lot to women's groups. There's this thing that they like to say in Catholic mom groups all the time. Well, you are, clothing the naked and feeding the poor and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, that is not okay. That's how I see the devil coming into where that seems like a really good thing. And I'm over here going, no, that's called your kid. That's called your vocation.
Yeah.
That's not the same. There are actual homeless people, and there are actual naked people and people in prison. And you still have to do that. Don't believe the lie that just because you're a mom that you get out of jail on a free card or whatever, free, whatever. Okay. Anyway, so I think it's interesting how, things can be very twisted. The problem with the church, and I meant to say that on purpose, is that it's filled with human beings. It's always going to, no. Listen, I'm serious. There's nothing wrong with the church. The problem are people. That's the problem. And it's always going to be that way. People are sinners. People fall off a pedestal. People, put themselves, whatever. They're broken. They're wounded. That's the problem. Church isn't the problem. So if you were in the church because of people, you absolutely will leave because of people. If you're in the church because you believe in the Eucharist and the doctrines of this faith, you're going nowhere. Doesn't matter how many scandals there are. Doesn't matter what famous Catholic you've read that just pieced out. You won't care. That will not shake you. So yeah, the problem with the church is people, not the church.
And I think that's really important. So for me, in my own faith journey, I hate that term, but my own faith journey,
It's cliche for a reason.
so to speak, the more I've learned about Catholic doctrine and the history and the saints and everything, the more I've fallen in love with the church, meaning Jesus and the Eucharist and everything that he built throughout the last 2,000 years, right? So and I think that's kind of what you're getting at, right? It's you're dedicated to the church, but the people in it, it's they're not always great.
Yeah, my husband and I say all the time, we have a covenant with each other. These kids that we made, I mean, they're leaving. Like they're not. That's why you can't live your life for your kids. They're going to go on and do whatever they're supposed to do with their lives. But we have a covenant. When you're in a church, you're there because you're there for the church. You're there for the sacraments, the Eucharist. If you're there because Audrey Assad was your favorite singer and then she pieces out, that's on you. That's not on Audrey. Like, you've got to make that decision. You need to understand why you're in this faith. And she has her own responsibility, right? She has her own soul. But you've got to check yourself and say, why am I here? And what do I know about it? So when I do have someone in my life that is wanting to leave the faith, I always ask them, well, what do you know about it before you leave? Do you even understand it? And 9 times out of 10, they don't. They're like, well, we worship Mary. Okay. Well, we just have a lot of old guys that just sit around and they just make up bad rules. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. You hear the same 10 things, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, you shouldn't be here for it. In some sense, we shouldn't be shaken by her leaving because she's a person. And it should not affect our faith at all, because that's not why I'm in this church to begin with.
Yeah. I was talking with a very, very dear friend of mine. He was telling me his 15-year-old son was really struggling and didn't want to go to mass and everything. And so I said, well, just have him come talk to me. I'd really like to just talk about his intellectual objections to the faith. And he said, Father, it's not intellectual. He's just lazy. I was like,
right.
It's like, oh yeah, that's true. I guess
church is hard.
He's 15. It's it's not that he disagrees with any dogmas. He just wants to sleep in on Sunday mornings.
Right.
My brother's an atheist, and I think that's the reason why. He's not smart enough to come up with a reason that God doesn't exist. He just doesn't want God to exist, because that means you have to order your life to him.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. Obedience, and you have to show up and every week.
Kind of a pain, man.
I mean, 40 days in the spring, that's hard. Yeah, I know. People are ridiculous.
Okay, well, it's cold here.
Sunday.
Just remember that. It's cold
So
here.
Lent is harder?
In the Northeast?
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Lent is harder in the North. Now, that would be a fun topic.
Where's Lent the hardest?
Where is Advent more difficult?
Well, probably Alaska. I mean, if you're going to really...
I say
Well, yeah.
Siberia if we're going with some. Yeah, where they only
Siberia.
have like.
Anchorage, not bad. Fairbanks,
Yeah, but sometimes
bad.
they have like 20 minutes of sun a day or
I have
something.
never been to Alaska.
I've never,
Well, that's not
I
neither.
know a lot
Yeah.
about Alaska.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Do you?
Oh, really? I do know a lot about Alaska.
How do you know so much?
Fascinated.
Oh,
Fascinated by
interesting.
Alaska.
Have you gone?
No,
You'll love it.
I know.
Okay. Yo, we solved one
Okay.
thing tonight.
All right.
Wow.
Man, this is productive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like
Paul will
Alaska
love
too,
Alaska.
but like, it's my penance.
Did you know that people one Alaska tangent? Do you know that Russians came down from Alaska and settled in California for a time? And there's
wait, so they
Russian
walked-
settlements. There's Russian
Yeah,
settlements.
there's whole towns.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like really cute.
What era are we talking about? 1900s?
I love that I'm with
1800s,
guys.
really?
They're like, really?
Fascinating. Anyway, go on. We should probably go back to the
That is
Okay.
fascinating. Actually, I want to keep going.
No, I was hoping we would just, move to Washington or something.
Then it rains all the time.
No, okay. No, I don't want to.
Man, this is a tough group with geography.
I guess Texas is really the only place to live.
Like, how many states
Yeah,
are there?
apparently Lent is easy where I live. So
I didn't say
get
it's
over
easy.
yourself,
I didn't say it's
Texas.
easy. Yeah.
Get it together.
Yeah.
Going skiing on a Friday and not being able to eat meat is not easy. Never mind. Go on.
Snow skiing? What kind of skiing? Ice skiing?
I'm sorry.
I
Rollerblading.
did not get that. That was fantastic. Okay.
I'm not even sure
As
what question
we're moving
on.
on, we don't even know.
Oh, okay. All right. So the next one. Yeah. So, actually, kind of an interesting segue is that, I remember when I was teaching an RCIA class, I was teaching it with another teacher who was not, I don't think she was as deeply steeped in Catholicism as a teacher I would want a teacher to be, who taught RCIA to adults. And we were talking about what does it mean to be Catholic? What can you disagree with and still be Catholic? And she's like, well, that's a really good question. I mean, like, there's a few essentials, but for the most part, if you can believe what you want and still be Catholic. So, I mean, what can you believe different things? Just this past weekend, I got an email from a parishioner at my parish who said, I'm very offended that you have in the back of church these posters for the 40 Days for Life. And she said, I'm a pro-choice Catholic and these posters offend me. Please take them down. And, I mean, we have...
How did
I know.
that
Are we
conversation
not supposed to laugh to that?
I
But
know.
find
Well, I didn't
find
respond to that
I
email.
find
That was me.
Ironic.
I didn't respond to the email, but
Sorry.
but that's a question. Like, what doctrines are essential to be Catholic?
I'm in like.
Like you went official? Like you went? Is this like a Trivia Pursuit
like,
question?
oh my God.
Okay, let's see.
Just curious. I mean,
Council of Trent came out.
is a pro-choice Catholic still a Catholic? Is somebody who denies the Eucharist still a
Isn't
Catholic?
there-
Because we got 2/3 of the Catholic Church that denies the Eucharist, according to some studies.
Oof, scary stuff.
Right? Yeah. Some may not even believe in God and be Catholic. I don't know.
Yeah, but
That's for sure got to be like. I mean, isn't the answer everything? But I think Thomas Aquinas has a quote that I'm going to severely botch.
Please do.
But it's something along the lines of, if there are 12 things that you have to believe and you believe in 11 of them, and you don't believe in one of them, would you be saved? And his answer, I think scarily enough, was no, because then you're not really you're not a member of the Catholic Church. You're a member of the Church of Me. The Church of Me is probably not what he said, but you know what I mean? That concept of like, you can't disagree. The second you disagree with the Catholic Church, you're ceasing to be Catholic. That seems like pretty intellectually sound.
yeah, well, I totally agree with you, because, I mean, this is why we have the term cafeteria Catholic, because, back in the day, guys, we used to have cafeterias where you had cafeteria ladies that would give food out of vats.
That
and
was like 2 years ago.
Oh, please. Please. Y'all don't even know. I go to my kid's school and like everything's wrapped in plastic. I'm like, where's the lady with the ladle? Like, you don't know until somebody has please. Okay. Well, whatever. In Texas,
mom
where we have
had
easy
lunch.
Lent, I'm just kidding.
Your mom was the lunch lady?
Head lunch lady 1 year.
No. Oh, one day?
1 year.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
that's amazing. So, I think that term came around because people would like to pick and choose.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I mean, the whole Mary thing, she seems lame. And it's like, okay, yeah, we can't do that. We can't say that.
Yeah.
I think there's some things that most people would automatically be like, Jesus, okay, yay or nay. And we'd be like, no, we're a hard yay.
Yeah.
I totally believe in that guy, But then if you come up with birth control, all right, let's
Right.
think about what is in the world, or how about this? How about I can't have babies, so IVF, right? And you have a bunch of Catholics that don't know that's not okay. That's not the way that you can achieve a pregnancy in the Catholic Church. So I think one of the things we have to be careful of is, why do they have the information they have? Is it because they have been catechized poorly? They don't know? How many priests are standing up telling you not to have IVF? I'm asking.
I've actually never heard it.
Crickets.
I mean, so then how are the people supposed to know? And then here we are going like, you didn't get all 12. You only got 11. And they're like, but I didn't know. I mean, and that's the whole thing about like, with
Right.
great knowledge comes great responsibility. Right. But also, you can't just go around not being knowledgeable. You do have to check in. You do have to educate yourself at some point. But I think as a community, especially those of us who are preaching, we have to, by the way that we're living or whatever, I post stuff all the time on my social media.
Yeah.
I'm very present there. And the reason I do it is with great intention. I don't come out and say things.
Right.
I post memes or, whatever that
Right.
people get the gist.
I think, oh man, I'm slowly but surely losing my. Oh, there it is. The train of thought had gone, but it
Came back.
arrived. Yeah, there was like a whole. I mean, I didn't live through it, but there was a whole period of time. The term is like a counter magisterium. There was a bunch of theologians that spoke on the contraception issue, and were like, "No, it's all good. Like, even though the church says this, like we say this, and like that's the church you belong to. That's why it's called this counter magisterium, because." If you're following, like, and they were saying, like, we are Catholic theologians.
Yeah.
And that's even more confusing.
They were taught in the seminaries that you could, like, our pastor was taught
it's not
that.
a was thing, it's an is thing, right? I mean, you have the synodal way in Germany right now that's going on.
Yeah.
Which is really, if anyone, it's like a group of, it's a group of priests that's marrying homosexual couples, right? Essentially blessing those relationships.
Women becoming priest.
Yeah,
like there's all sorts
there's a whole
of
movement in Catholic
course.
Church in the United States of women becoming priests.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I tell people all the time. People will say like, "Oh, but my priest told me that we can do X, Y, Z," and I'm like, "Yeah, you can find a priest who will tell you anything.
Yeah.
That's not hard." But so that's a tremendous responsibility of the priest. So I think it's going to have to start with, what doctrines do the priest, preach and believe?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's where it starts.
One of the things that I always find very challenging is there's a lot of topics that I would like to talk about in a homily. And it's not that I'm worried about people walking out. It's that, A, how do I tie it into the readings? And B, is the homily the right appropriate place to talk about birth control? Because you have 7-year-olds sitting there. You have 85-year-olds sitting there.
Right.
I mean, is it...
Yeah, but you can. I mean,
can.
I was a chastity speaker. That's how I got started. And my talks varied vastly depending on my audience. You know, when I love talking to young adults that were in college, because I could say a lot of stuff that I couldn't say to high school kids, you know, that I couldn't say to junior high, that I couldn't say to whatever. But there's absolutely ways that you can talk about these topics and be very real about it. But we've got to talk about it. We've got to educate the masses, because we are the ones that are able to do that. Those of us who do have this knowledge. I really do. I think we have been on this, like, not in mission, I don't know, empowered for this mission field. Just making up words. Obviously, I was chosen to speak, everybody.
well, I think it goes back to what we spoke about on the last episode at this, that at some point people do have to, like I was saying last time, like people do have to eventually make a decision. And it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to be a cafeteria Catholic, I'm going to believe, but I don't agree with the church on that, but I believe this and I think it's right. You've now made a decision, right? That's not in teaching with the Catholic Church. So originally you posed the question of what doctrines do we have to believe in? And the answer is truly like all of them. And if you don't know something, the onus is on you as a baptized Catholic to go and figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's that not everything is this doctrine or this dogma. You know, there are traditions, but again, decipher between those.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's true. I would say doctrines, though, we have them codified. So.
No, I know, but my point
priests
is
getting married is a tradition. I mean, we can have married priests that come over and, you know, all that stuff. And that's always talked about. Like that could, you know, are we going to actually make that doctrine or dogma or whatever the difference is between the two and not have it as a tradition anymore.
Right.
It gets confusing. I mean, I think it's confusing for people who even have theology degrees. This isn't easy stuff. So yeah, the guy that's sitting in the pew that has never been exposed to anything and was taught the wrong things, that's how hard is it going to be for that guy? And we hope in grace, and we hope that, you know, we believe in this final moment, right? Like that they choose, like, oh, I get it. You know what I mean? That's what I hope for. That whole, you know, people in the field, the workers in the field, that they're given this moment where they see everything and that they say, all right, I'm in. Even though they live their life with only the 11 out of the 12.
I'll tell people that are on the edge, maybe that might be listening to this, it's a tremendous relief, right? When you actually decide to follow the church to some extent. Like, I don't have to decide whether or not contraception is right or IVF or whatever. And you pick your issue. I don't have to make those because I rely on the magisterium of the church. And that's like, it's when the world is crazy, it's just one thing, another thing I don't have to think about. You know, I just believe it and go with it.
I think that's one of the like best arguments against sola scriptura, which is like, how on earth could a random layperson, for lack of a better way of saying it, like we like do not know enough to like personally interpret the Bible. You know what I mean?
It's so arrogant. And I think the devil is brilliant because arrogance gets us in a lot of trouble, especially as Americans. I don't know if you've met any Texans. Have you met them? They're the worst.
I lived with so many.
But I mean, and he also uses shame and fear. You know, I think those are kind of his biggest things. And so it is shameful when you walk into a place and you say something and then you get shamed, you know, and you didn't know the information. That person isn't coming back, you know, or if they've been given the fear of God, but not in the, you know, in the holy way, but in the like, I will beat you way. Like that's not going to work, guys. That's that's not our good moments, you know? Yeah. So we have a lot of work to do. We really do. And it's more about locking arms and doing the work. And there's plenty for everybody. No competition kind of a thing.
Could I ask you a question, Father?
Yes.
Like how this would all relate to, what if I went like super personal?
Go for it.
What's your favorite
colors? See, there we go. Sing the same way. Dark green.
Just like all of this, this kind of thing about like the different teachings in connection to the sense of the faithful. Because the Holy Spirit guides us, right? Guides the faithful to believing in these things. I don't know. It's just like an interesting connection that I've thought in my brain, but can't articulate anything worth saying about. And so I'm hoping you can.
Yeah, I mean, we do believe in something called Census fidelium, meaning that the church has a supernatural instinct of faith. Every layperson, if they're a believer of goodwill.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. Believer of goodwill. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But now at the same time, we can be very blinded by our own choices. You know, I remember doing a marriage prep. We do a little mentor couple model where a mentor couple, 10 years old, married, whatever, comes with the couple that's preparing for marriage. And they get to pick their mentor couple. So I've never met them before usually. And so I was sitting down one time and having kind of the contraception conversation with the the couple that's preparing for marriage. And you could see that they were really engaged. They were really like, you're asking great questions. They were totally open to it. They're like, wow, this is beautiful stuff. I never thought about that. And the body language of the mentor couple who'd been married for 10 years was like shooting darts out of their eyes at me. And
Right.
I don't know them. I'd never seen them before, never seen them again. But if I had to bet dollars to donuts, I'd say they're probably doing it. And they probably are not happy being called out to do it.
Right.
So if you're not engaged in it, if you don't have like skin in the game, it's very easy to learn about IVF if you have 10 kids and you don't need to worry about it. If you're infertile and that's your only hope of having a child, it's a little harder. Because now you've got the emotions wrapped up in it, and that's where really the cross comes in. And you just have to say, look, the Christian life is a cross, and God never promised us happiness here, But I guarantee God will bless you in other fruitful ways if you're faithful to Him.
Right.
We have an entitlement issue. And especially when it comes to kids in the Catholic Church, it's very difficult being a woman who only has 2 children and they're 7.5 years apart. And I do have permanent infertility. I had to have a medical hysterectomy at 36. And it was done by Dr. Hilders, who's the leading guy for NFP. Like, he's like,
really?
Oh, heck yeah. He runs the Pope Paul VI Institute in Nebraska and flown over by the Vatican all the time. It's hard. It's an absolute, I used to like start like caveat, like, I believe I'm pro-life. We only did an FP. Like I had to like lead with my story. And so I think, there's this pressure as Catholic couples, Catholic women who are married, that your value is in how many children you have. And when you have states like Massachusetts that you can get IVF for free.
Can you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or you can, like you see all these other people and they're talking about it and it seems great. And they, people don't understand, first of all, why does the church not believe in IVF? And what does that even mean? I mean, that gets really complicated. And the whole like NFP or fertility care is what we're supposed to call it now. Okay. Anyway, it's really intimidating, and there's all these methods and So I think you see that laziness and I think you see that entitlement, like, oh, I deserve children. We're married. We're a good Catholic couple. Like, what do you mean? How am I going to go out there without these kids? People are going to think I'm whatever. So the devil's so smart. I mean, he really takes a good children. I mean, as you're a woman, you're thinking, this is good. I want to have children. That's a positive. Look at me. I'm pro-life. I'm the culture of life. He takes that concept and then he distorts it. And I think that that's where people get very confused. But wait, I don't understand, Father. I want to have a baby.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's not easy
No.
to navigate.
And when you have all of your friends doing it.
Sure. And they
There's
have
peer
12
pressure.
kids. Absolutely.
most-
Mind you. They
All
love
your
me.
friends
I
have
go and
12
help
kids.
them at Mass. They're like, Auntie Liv is here. Thank God. Good thing she only had 2 kids.
Gosh.
I'm like, everyone's au pair. All right. Anyway.
No, it's true. It's true.
It's true.
And part of the challenge too is to know when you can bring that up. I've been in my parish for about 3 months, a little over 3 months. And, this past weekend's readings were all about divorce and remarriage from Jesus, and I'm kind of like, oof, Jesus is preaching some tough stuff, Am I too new at my parish to lay down the heavy stuff right now, Have they gotten to know me enough that they wouldn't find this something that's like a turn off that would totally wreck my ministry,
Or do they know it's coming out of love? Which
Right.
it would be, right?
Right.
Which is a whole different thing.
So I
We know
decided-
that because when you were in Stanford, like we knew that. We
Yeah.
knew everything you were.
Yeah, it was coming out of love. And so I decided to preach on marriage in general and not address the divorce issue immediately, which I know would hit a lot of nerves. So we have a lot of divorcees in my parish.
Yeah.
So, but thankfully in 3 years, I got the readings coming back again. So 3 years under my belt, I can kind of.
The priest I was in Hoboken for this past weekend. Well, that's not true. I was passing through Hoboken this past weekend and I ended up in Mass there. And he took it on this whole thing. It was an interesting angle. He was talking about all the old Jewish laws. And he was like, a man could divorce a woman any reason he wanted. Like he was like, she could be a bad cook and that would be an okay reason to divorce her. But women didn't have rights to divorce husbands. So he kind of actually took this angle about how women, he kind of did this whole feminist thing, but not in the good way, like in a Catholic way, like whatever. And he was trying to show the equality of man and woman and that the dignity of both. And he kind of, it was just a neat angle of how he came at it. But, there are a lot of divorced people, and some, are rightly so. The marriage, can be annulled because it never really existed to begin with. So you have to, there's a lot of room that you can talk in other spaces, and kind of bring it out there. But I think the Holy Spirit is the one that's doing this whole gig. And he's going to have you talk when you're supposed to talk. You know what I mean? Like, I think you're doing a fantastic job. Not that you needed me to high five you and cheer you, but
wow, if Liv says I'm doing a fantastic job.
I just want to be your hype girl. Okay. He doesn't even know.
I'm hoping that she's posting all these episodes on her social media. But yeah. Okay, well, we've reached our time limit again, but I think that was a fruitful conversation about the need for truth to be a major part of our efforts in the church, and to not be afraid of the truth, not be afraid to believe the truth, even if it's inconvenient, to quote Al Gore, an inconvenient truth.
Oh,
sorry.
That was Al Gore?
That was a movie about Al Gore, yeah.
Oh,
no, he wrote the book, Inconvenient.
Oh, did he write the book?
Yeah.
About global warming. Yeah.
Len Breck wrote the book, The Inconvenient Book.
Okay, well, we already know I don't read, so we covered
I'm sorry.
that.
Probably should not have brought up that can of worms. But
guys,
Find the audiobook.
But I think the important piece is that we really should submit ourselves, our heart and mind and will, to the church, because otherwise we become our own pope, and that's a dangerous thing to have different popes walking around here on this earth. It's kind of the safest place we know that passes on Christ's teaching. Thanks so much for joining us in this episode of Restless. You can also join Liv on her show that's on Veritas Catholic Radio on Thursday nights at 8. It's called It's Not That Late, because it's a late show for those that go to bed at 9.
And you can watch
that's
it on
me, and
YouTube,
that's Paul.
or listen to it later.
YouTube, follow her on all kinds of social media. She's the social media queen.
The Liv Harrison.
At the Liv Harrison.
How arrogant is that?
Because the other Liv Harrison is not the right one.
We don't like her.
No. The Liv Harrison.
She's atheist. No, I'm kidding. I have no idea. She's probably lovely and has 12 kids.
Lovely.
Probably. I don't know.
She is. She probably is. And fertile. Okay.
I'm sure you can follow Matt Speraza on social media, right?
Yeah. Actually, I just erased Instagram.
I'm proud of you.
Not like my account.
Proud of you.
I have zero social media except for LinkedIn, if you want to connect for
That
business
is
topics.
hilarious.
I have a lot of social
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say Paul's last name.
All of them.
No,
But
Paul
Jen.
I'll get fired.
Paul's last name is a mystery.
That's right.
Paul's a mystery man.
Pinterest.
Not so
Paul and I are having our own conversation over here. I don't know what you guys are talking about. But we better wrap up this episode of Restless. So thanks for joining us. Hope you tune in next time. God bless.